Hey vinyl community, this is Luke with Hot Wax and Cool Vinyl. Welcome back. This is my second installment in my top 100 albums. This would be numbers 90 through 81. I do my top 100 for me in a manner that brings an emotional response. That's how I choose the albums. Whether it's a memory or association with a person or a time period in my life that I put that album on, or I look at that album and I'm brought back to that period or that moment in time. And the reason I do this is quite simply, I believe that if it's in our collection, we like it. So at any given point, any 100 albums in our collection could be or could not be in your top 100 on that given moment. So that said, let's begin. The first one, or number 90, is Pete Townshend's White City. White City was released in 1985, and I was in Rome in 1986. And I had this album on, I think I had it on CD or cassette, one of the two. And I really got into it a lot as I was walking the streets of Rome. If you've never been to Europe, one of the things to do in Europe is take a stroll. And so my now wife, then girlfriend, were just walking through the streets of Rome and looking at the shops and stuff like that. And I happened to have had to be my Walkman, and this album just was playing in my Walkman, and it was just a great afternoon that I spent with my wife. And so this one, because of that afternoon and because it was playing there, comes in at number 90. It also happens to be a really great album. Townsend wrote all the songs. He actually wrote White City along with David Gilmour. They made it into a movie. I've never seen it. I've never seen it advertised anywhere. I guess I could always check Netflix or YouTube and see what's out there. But the score is really solid. I mean, Townsend is an underrated writer of social music as far as I'm concerned. And this is a really, really powerful album. If I'm not mistaken, I could be, but I don't think I am. It was written about a city in South Africa during apartheid. So, great, powerful album, great songs, and for me, a great memory of a wonderful night spent strolling the streets of Rome with my wife. Number 89, Simon & Garfunkel's Greatest Hits. As a child, or not a child, but a teen, there was a local radio station that every year, the week between Christmas and New Year's, did their top, I guess it was 100 or 200 songs, whatever the case was. Now, I don't recall if it was for the year or of all time, but I looked forward to that because it was really just a really great bunch of songs they played. But that particular year, and I think it was 1977, because I wasn't old enough to drive, that particular year, A Bridge Over Troubled Water was number 1. And they must have played that, I don't know, daily, because I mean, you can only play the 100 songs so many times in the course of a week, you know? So I couldn't understand how that got number 1 over The Sound of Silence or Mrs. Robinson, but it did, and I freaking hated that damn song. I have subsequently grown to really actually enjoy Bridge Over Troubled Water, but this record brings me back to that week. And it was, a typical Long Island winter. It was cold, and snowy, and miserable, and you didn't go anywhere. So I spent a lot of time that week listening to the radio. So Bridge Over Troubled Water, Simon & Garfunkel's Greatest Hits, comes in at number 89. At number 88, back to Rome, different time period. Band called The Sports. They had a minor hit in the United States called "Who Listens to the Radio." They're an Australian new wave pop band. It's a good album, and the reason it's on my list, and the reason it's on my list at number 88 is this time I lived in Rome from the summer of 1981 until February of 1983. And I'm in a record store in Rome, and the latter part of that, I guess it was the middle part of 1982, and I did a needle drop on this record because I'd never heard of it. The cover looked cool. This isn't the cover. This is just the inner sleeve. But I did a needle drop on, and I'm listening to Who Listens to the Radio, and I really, really dig it. Unfortunately, I was also dead broke, so I didn't have enough money to buy it. And so I kind of made a mental note, and a couple of years later back home, in my local record store, and I find that they've got this on the, this back discount bin shelf, and so I buy it, and I love it, and it's there, and then over the years, I don't know, I guess I lost it, or I traded it, or threw it out, or whatever the case was. So I was able to buy it again 2 years ago, 2 years ago, in the Belmore flea market here on Long Island, and it was like $1. It's missing the cover. This copy was missing the cover. This is just the inner sleeve. Last year, I was able to actually get a newer copy, a better copy with the original cover. It's somewhere in my to-be filed pile of records. I haven't gotten around to cataloging or alphabetizing it. This was there, so I chose this to show. But Sports, Don't Throw Stones comes in at number 88. At number 87, Face Value, Phil Collins. Now, this is a great record. This song, all the songs on this are a great record. Even though Phil has an affinity for his face on records, this is a great album. I like it. It's in this collection, and it's at number 87. Again, for a time period in Rome. When this came out, I guess I was 18, 19 years old, and a very good friend of mine from Rome and I would play the cassette in his Fiat 800 Sport drop top as we drove around Rome. And God, we thought we were the coolest thing ever. We must have looked like schmucks, but we thought we were so cool. So this album has to be in that for that memory. That's one of those cringeworthy memories, but it's definitely a memory that I always chuckle when I put this album on, because I'm automatically brought back to that time period in my life. So, Phil Collins, Face Value, number 87. Number 86, Yaz, Upstairs at Eric's. This is just a great new wave album. And when I got back from Rome, I guess it was 83, new wave was in full swing here in the States, and every time you'd go to any bar, any club, they would be, at some point they played this song. They played, they played Don't Go, and it was one of those few records that got everybody on the dance floor, including me. And so it was a fun time in my life. My now wife, then girlfriend, would go out bar hopping 3-4 nights a week when she was home from college, and it always seemed that we wind up dancing to this song. Let's see, this song, The Psychedelic Furs, and Modern English as I Melt With You would be the three songs that we always wind up dancing to. So how can you not include that with that memory? So number 86 is Yaz, Upstairs at Eric's. 85, Still Crazy After All These Years from Paul Simon. This album comes out when we had just moved to the east end of Long Island from central Long Island. And central Long Island is much more suburbia. The east end of Long Island to this day remains much more rural. So we move out here and I'm in 7th grade. So it's 1975. I don't know anybody. The east end of Long Island to me it's farm country, and it could be Mars. It just looks like another planet altogether. And I have no real friends because all my friends are still where we lived before we moved out here. And this album had come out that year, and My Little Town is on this. And if you ever heard the lyrics to My Little Town, not really a happy song. But it fit my feelings of where we had moved to at the time. Subsequent to that, of course, by the fact that I'm still out here and I've raised my children on the east end of Long Island, you can imagine that I grew to love it very much. But for that first 8 months or so that we lived out here, I really just couldn't get my head around where my father had brought us, and what I had done wrong to deserve such a fate. Little did I know that I'd grow to love it. And aside from the fact that it's really a great album, and everybody should have at least this album in your collection. Great singer-songwriter, fantastic lyricist, great musician too. Paul Simon's Still Crazy After All These Years. And that is at number 86. At number 85, Goodnight Vienna from Ringo Starr. This was also featured in one of my other videos as a must-have for under $5. It's a great record to have. But it's here, and it's here at number 84 because of the No-No song. Couldn't stop singing it when it came out as a child. Just a really, really fun little catchy tune. Had really no clue what it meant, but brings me back to that innocent time in my life when songs came on the radio and I didn't have a record player. I didn't have any records at the time. I was still a very young boy. And it would come on the radio and I would just immediately run to the radio, turn up the volume, and sing along with the song. Probably much to the chagrin of everybody around me. I do not have a musical ear, and I sing horribly. When I sing, seagulls come crashing to the earth. That's how bad it is when I sing. But what a great memory. The No-No song, Goodnight Vienna, Ringo Starr, number 84. Number 83, Neil Young's Rust Never Sleeps. Leaving aside the fact that it's a great record, it's a great rock record. Leaving all that aside, this album comes out, and some buddies of mine and I are wandering through the city. When we refer to the city here on Long Island, it's New York. So we're walking through New York City, and the tour, and the album and the tour had just come out, and posters were splayed all over Times Square, all over Penn Station, because he was playing the Garden. And I really didn't know anything about Neil Young, but I'm looking at this cover on the posters, and I'm asking my friend, have you ever heard this guy? You know anything about this guy? Now, granted, we were kids, so no, we hadn't. And he was like, yeah, he's the guy who does, Cinnamon Girl. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I've heard him. And so we got home, and I wound up buying the album and really dug both versions of Hey Hey My My. So yeah, this brings me back to that time in the city, walking the streets with a couple of buddies of mine as young teens pretending that we really were hip and we knew what the rock and roll was. We had no idea, not a clue. But we wound up learning. So this one comes in at 83 for that reason. It's a great record nonetheless. It should be it really should be in your collection unless you hate Neil Young. I know there's a couple of guys in the VC who hate him, but if you're not one of them, grab it. Number 82, Nazareth. Malice in Wonderland. Isn't that a great cover? It really is. Just an absolutely great cover. Just more than slightly morbid, but still a great cover. In the first section on David Bowie's The Lodger, I had it in at, I can't recall what number it was. I guess it was in the 94 or 95. And I explained that it was because of the video, The Lodger. Very similar to this. This one in, what year was that? I guess it would have to be the same year. Probably 79, 78, 79. What year did this come out in? This came out in, pardon me as I try to figure out what year this came out. Yeah, this is 79. So I get home from work late at night, and my folks own the restaurant, so on Friday nights we get home, and I wasn't old enough to go out to the bars, so I'd come home at night and just throw on the late night rock, Don Kirshner's rock concert or whatever it was, or midnight videos, whatever it was. But these guys were on with Holiday, and it's a great song, and it's not a bad video for the time period. If you check it out on YouTube, you'll find out. But it was just such a great song, and so I bought the album and I rebought it a couple of years ago when I started recollecting vinyl. It was actually one of the first purchases I made because, again, it brings me back to that time period where I was not quite old enough to go to bars, but starting to be old enough to really appreciate music. And so when I come home from work, if I didn't have the album, I'd discover a lot of new music, not just from the radio stations, but also from the late night videos that were on. And so that's how I discovered Nazareth. To this day, great album, great song, and great memories associated with it. And finally, Aquarius, The Fifth Dimension. Gonna go back to Rome, this time as a very young man, probably, I'm gonna say 10, 11 years old, and at a restaurant with my folks and some family friends and family. And as a kid, you get up and you run around. So this restaurant had a little cafe next door to it, and it had a pinball machine there and a jukebox. And Aquarius came on the jukebox, and I really, really liked it. And my cousin was teaching me how to play pinball, and I guess we had a pocket full of change, whatever the case is. And I liked Aquarius so much that I probably played it like 10 times that night. Just kept throwing in, I think it was like 100 lira at the time, about 5 cents, into the jukebox and playing Aquarius time after time after time. So yeah, this one comes in at number 81. I still love the song to this day. Every time I hear it, I have associated memories with it, but the strongest one was this night in Rome, having dinner with my mom and my dad and some family members. And me and my cousin, him teaching me how to play pinball, and me spending all my loose change on a jukebox, listening to Aquarius. So that's it. That brings us to number 81. The next installment I'll try to get done in the next 5-6 days. Today was a good choice because we had our third nor'easter in 10 days, so it's snowy and crappy outside, so there's no work. I did some computer work in the morning, and the rest of the afternoon I have free because I cleaned up the driveway, and it's too early to make dinner, so I figured let me make this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please leave me a comment. Let me know. I really enjoy the communication back and forth with the vinyl community. That's what it's all about for me. Because I learned there's so many records out there, so many bands out there. I think, what is the woman's name? The Omaha Introvert, very nice young lady, had done one of her local finds, and there was a band called Mew that does indie. Now, you guys may have all known them. They're popular, very popular. I had no idea who they were. But it was really cool to listen to some of their stuff on YouTube, and I wound up putting one of their records on my want list. So that's really what keeps me coming back, is the community and the feedback I get back. And there's I'm going to leave a link down there. There's a huge Genesis fan who knows, this guy knows so much about Genesis. It's awesome. It's Vinylverse, and there'll be a link down below. Check out his channel. He's got some really great records, and he does a nice job of presentation. I really like, as you guys I'm sure can tell, I'm a little bit laid back. I try not to do a lot of screaming and yelling and blah blah blah. So not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just not my style. So, and I gravitate towards the vinyl community, who is a little bit more subdued and a little bit more mellow. And if you're like me in that aspect, and you just kind of like, absorb the information and then hit pause and go to your want list and then check it out. Check out Vinylverse. I think you'll like his channel. He's really solid. So until next time, thank you very much for watching. Please leave me a comment. If you have not subscribed, please do so. The vanity in me says you must subscribe. Please don't let the vanity run amok. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful week. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.